I walked in and saw my kids sitting on the floor with paper plates. My mom said they're used to leftovers. My sister added they were born for crumbs. So I walked out. I was just walking in, late afternoon sun stretching long shadows across my parents' gleaming hardwood. I'd come to pick up Eli and Noah. Mom had insisted on watching them so I could finish a presentation. But the words that drifted from the kitchen stopped me dead in my tracks. Let Claire's kids eat first. Eli and Noah can have the leftovers. It was my mother, Linda, her voice carrying through the house with that chilling, almost dismissive tone, as if she didn't expect to be heard. My sister, Claire, chimed in with a soft laugh that twisted my stomach. They might as well get used to it. Kids like them don't need much. My heart hammered against my ribs. I took 3 silent steps, just enough to peek into the dining room. There they were, my nephews, Ava and Connor, sitting proudly at the table, plates piled high with steaming lasagna. The good plates. The ones Mom brought out for special occasions. Then my gaze dropped. On the kitchen floor, cross-legged on the cold tile, sat my boys, 8-year-old Eli and 6-year-old Noah. Paper plates balanced on their laps. Cold sandwiches. Not even cut diagonally, the way they liked. My father, Gerald, barely glanced up from his recliner, newspaper lowered just enough to see over. They need to learn their place in this world. Time simply froze. The air left my lungs. I watched my boys, heads bowed over those pathetic paper plates, shoulders hunched in a posture I now recognized as shame. How many times had they sat like this? How many times had I been so focused on work, so trusting, that I'd missed every single sign? My hands began to tremble. A raw, hot rage started building in my chest, a physical force. Boys, I managed, my voice barely a whisper. Get your backpacks. 5 heads snapped in my direction. My mother's face transformed instantly, a bright, fake smile plastered on. Oh, we didn't hear you come in, sweetheart. Claire meticulously straightened the silverware beside her untouched plate, avoiding my eyes. The boys said they preferred sandwiches. The lie hung there, thick and suffocating. Eli looked up at me, his dark eyes, so much like Malcolm's, met mine. No words were needed. The truth passed between us, a silent, crushing exchange, along with something else that broke my heart: resignation. Noah pushed himself up from the floor, his small voice tight as he asked, "Can we go home now?" For simple words. They told me everything. This wasn't the first time. Gerald waved a dismissive hand, paper rustling. They're fine. Stop being so sensitive. My mind flashed to the checkbook in my purse. Just last month, a $6,800 check for their new roof. The year before, another $5,000 for Claire's minivan repair. 9 years. 9 years of writing checks since I landed my first real job at 25. 9 years of Malcolm's gentle warnings. They call you for money, not for dinner. The weight of co-signing their $260,000 mortgage pressed down on my shoulders. How many times had I defended them to Malcolm? That's just how they show love. They're old-fashioned. Old-fashioned. The word tasted like ash. Linda stepped towards me, coffee cup extended like an olive branch. You're always in such a rush. Stay for coffee. Claire slid into the conversation with practiced nonchalance. It's not a big deal. Kids don't care about these things. I moved past them, grabbing my son's jackets from the hook by the door. I noted how quickly the boys collected their things. The practiced movements. The way Eli helped Noah zip up without being asked. They'd done this before. Escaping quickly, quietly, without drawing attention. Don't make a scene, Gerald warned, folding his newspaper with deliberate, menacing care. You're overreacting. I took a breath, feeling something solid forming in my chest, where uncertainty used to live. We're leaving, I stated, my voice steady. We won't be back until you can explain this. Claire watched with narrowed eyes, her sense of entitlement almost tangible. Linda's hands fluttered anxiously at her throat, panic rising as she realized she was losing control of her carefully constructed narrative. Gerald's authoritarian stance seemed to crumble slightly as I refused to back down. Eli took Noah's hand, protective in a way no 8-year-old should need to be of his little brother. As we moved towards the door, My gaze caught on the family photos lining the hallway. Years of subtle positioning I'd never noticed before. Claire's family centered in every frame. My family, Malcolm, the boys, me, always at the edges, as if we might be cropped out without anyone noticing. The front door closed behind us with a soft click that somehow sounded final. In the golden light of late afternoon, with my son's small, trusting hands in mine, clarity washed over me like a wave. "This isn't new," I whispered, more to myself than to them. "I've just been blind." I squeezed their hands and led them to the car, away from the house that suddenly felt less like home and more like the scene of a long, slow crime I'd been financing for years. Later that evening, in our home, I sat cross-legged on our bed, laptop balanced on my knees. The spreadsheet glowed, accusingly, in the dim light. 9 years of transactions. A digital paper trail of my own exploitation. $141,000. Malcolm appeared in the doorway, a steaming mug of chamomile tea in his hands. He said nothing, just placed it on my nightstand and watched my face. The slight furrow between his brows told me he was worried, but wouldn't push. "Not yet." $141,000, I whispered, the number burning my throat like acid. 9 years of family emergencies and temporary help. Malcolm sat beside me, the mattress dipping slightly. His silence was a courtesy I didn't deserve after years of dismissing his concerns. I opened another document, this one created in the 4 hours since we'd left my parents' house. A list. A devastating list of occasions when my family refused to help us. My emergency gallbladder surgery 3 years ago, when Mom claimed they were too busy to watch the boys. Our move to the new house, when Dad's back suddenly acted up. Eli's overnight hospital stay for pneumonia, when Claire was worried her kids might catch something. My phone buzzed. A text from my mother, "You're being dramatic, come back tomorrow." Malcolm's hand found mine, warm against my cold fingers. "Jacqueline," he said softly, "they've never invited us for Christmas morning. Always afternoon." The simple observation crashed through me like a wrecking ball. Every Christmas for 8 years. Always told to come after presents because morning is our special family time. I'd never questioned why Claire's family was included in that special family time while we weren't. I scrolled through my voicemail history. Gerald's messages followed a pattern. Friendly greetings, quick personal questions, then the inevitable request. "Sweetheart, the property taxes went up again. Just a small bump in our support would help tremendously." Support. As if I owed them a lifetime of financial servitude for raising me. Texts from Claire. References to those boys instead of their names. Constant comments about their appearance. "Noah's hair is getting so ethnic. Have you considered straightening it?" Cancellations when our families were supposed to meet, always with transparent excuses. And Linda, caught between her husband's demands and occasional flashes of conscience. Her messages swung wildly between guilt trips and rare moments of genuine affection, an inconsistency designed to keep me off balance and compliant. But what turned my stomach cold was discovering Gerald's name still listed as the emergency contact at the boys' school. A form I thought I'd updated months ago. Claire's position as PTA secretary suddenly took on new meaning. She'd had access to school forms all along. I closed my laptop around midnight, but sleep refused to come. At 2 a.m, I found myself standing in the doorway of my son's room, watching their peaceful breathing in the glow of Noah's turtle nightlight. "They don't love my children the way they should," I whispered to the darkness. A truth so obvious now that I wondered how I'd missed it for so long. I moved through our home with quiet purpose, taking down framed photos from the hallway wall. In one, taken at Eli's kindergarten graduation, Claire's children stood front and center while mine were partially cut off at the edge. Another from last Thanksgiving showed Noah reaching for a dinner roll while my father's hand blocked him, the gesture captured accidentally, but speaking volumes. Malcolm found me replacing these photos with ones of just our family, camping trips, beach vacations, backyard barbecues, where the boys' smiles reached their eyes. "It's time to protect our boys," he said, taking a tarnished silver frame from my hands. "They deserve better." Tears slid down my cheeks, but something had changed. The suffocating guilt that had driven me for years transformed into something harder, something with edges sharp enough to cut through the tangle of obligations I'd wrapped around myself. "I've been financing my children's rejection," I said, the words hanging between us like a confession. The next morning, I called Sarah, my best friend since college. "I need to tell you what happened," I began, my voice steadier than I expected. After I finished, the line went quiet for so long I checked to make sure we were still connected. "I've seen it for years," Sarah finally said. "I didn't know how to tell you." Those simple words. That validation. That I wasn't crazy, wasn't overreacting. It broke something loose inside me. Within hours, support materialized from places I hadn't thought to look. Malcolm's parents offering immediate assistance without questions. My coworker, Taylor, sharing resources about racial bias in families. My boss granting personal days with a knowing look that suggested she understood more than I'd ever shared. By evening, I'd made the first concrete steps: cancellation of the automatic monthly transfers to my parents. A call to the mortgage company to begin the process of removing my name. Instructions to the bank restricting any new credit extensions under my name. The closing of the Family Emergency Fund, account I'd maintained for nearly a decade. Each action brought a hollow victory, the satisfaction of reclaiming control undercut by the reality of what necessitated these measures. My body registered the stress in ways my mind couldn't yet process: tension, headaches, sleeplessness, a constant tightness in my chest. But beneath the physical discomfort lay something unfamiliar, the solid foundation of a boundary, long overdue and finally taking shape. 2 days later, I stared at my phone as my father's voicemail played for the third time. His voice boomed, filling my kitchen with the familiar mix of authority and expectation. "Jacqueline, there's a banking error. The transfer didn't go through. Call me back immediately." No error existed. Just my deliberate choice to stop the automatic monthly payment that had drained my account for years. My thumb hovered over the delete button, but instead I saved it. Evidence. The phone vibrated again. My mother. Her fourth call today. I let it ring through to voicemail, already knowing what message awaited. Linda's voice trembled when she spoke, a calculated tremor that once would have sent me rushing to fix whatever problem she claimed to have. "Sweetheart, please call us back. The mortgage payment is due next week. We'll lose the house if you don't help. How could you do this to us?" Malcolm watched me from across the kitchen counter, his expression careful. "You okay?" I took a deep breath, rehearsing the response I'd practiced with my therapist. "No error, Dad. Just boundaries." The words tasted strange, but satisfying, like a food I'd avoided for years, only to discover I loved it. "I'm better than okay," I told Malcolm, surprising myself with how true it felt. The doorbell rang, and Noah raced in from the living room. "I'll get it." "Wait." I called. But he was already turning the lock. The door swung open to reveal Claire standing on our porch, her expression a perfect mask of sisterly concern. My stomach tightened. "Auntie Claire." Noah exclaimed, genuine delight in his voice that made my heart ache. He didn't understand yet. Claire stepped inside without waiting for an invitation. "Jacqueline, we need to talk. This has gone far enough." "Noah, please go finish your homework with Eli," I said, keeping my voice level. He hesitated, sensing the tension, then disappeared down the hallway. "You can't just show up at my home unannounced," I told her once he was gone. "I tried your office first," she replied, as if this proved her point. "Your assistant wouldn't let me in. Taylor had texted me a warning, 'Your sister's here.' I told her you're in meetings all day. Should I call security?" I'd been grateful then. I was furious now. "You went to my workplace? That's completely inappropriate." Claire waved away my objection. "Family comes first, Jacqueline. You used to understand that." The bitter laugh escaped before I could stop it. "Family comes first? Is that why my sons were eating sandwiches on the kitchen floor while your kids had lasagna at the table?" Her face flushed. "You're still being dramatic about that." Mom explained. "Get out," I said quietly. She blinked, genuinely surprised. "What?" "Get out of my house. Now." Malcolm appeared beside me, solid and steady. "You heard her, Claire. It's time for you to leave." After she stormed out, the house felt suddenly lighter. Malcolm ordered pizza for dinner, something we rarely did on weeknights. We ate around the coffee table, watching a movie the boys chose. Eli and Noah laughed more freely than I'd heard in months. Their shoulders relaxed, their smiles reaching their eyes. Later, after the boys were in bed, Malcolm found me at the kitchen table, scrolling through dozens of missed calls and messages. Uncle Robert asking why I'd abandoned the family. Cousin Jennifer wondering if I was having a mental health episode. A notification from the community Facebook group where someone had anonymously questioned my family values. "You know what I noticed tonight?" Malcolm asked, sliding into the chair beside me. I looked up from the phone. "What?" "I've never seen you stand this tall," he said simply. The tears came without warning, hot and unexpected. Not sad tears. Relieving ones. Like a pressure valve finally releasing. "I was never the problem," I whispered, the realization crystallizing. I was the solution they exploited. Malcolm took my hand. "Start writing it down. All of it." The journal became my armor. Every manipulation. Every emergency loan. Every subtle slight against Malcolm or the boys. 9 years of financial transfers meticulously recorded alongside the corresponding familial obligation. The pattern emerged in black and white, money flowing out. Conditional love trickling back. When Linda requested a meeting at Coppa Leaf Coffee 2 days later, neutral ground, she called it. I agreed. But I was prepared this time. She arrived precisely 15 minutes late, eyes reddened just enough to draw sympathetic glances from other patrons. Her timing was impeccable, not so late that I might leave, but long enough that my coffee had cooled and my patience had thinned. "Sweetheart," she began, voice lowered to a confidential whisper. "You know how certain neighbors talk. We're just keeping things comfortable." My hand slipped into my pocket, pressing record on my phone. "What exactly do you mean, Mom?" Her eyes darted to the table beside us, where an elderly couple pretended not to listen. "You know exactly what I mean. Your boys are wonderful, but different. We help them navigate that." "Different how?" I pressed, my voice steady. Linda leaned closer. "Sweetheart, you know how certain neighbors talk. We're just keeping things comfortable." "You already said that," I cut in. "What do you mean by comfortable?" She sighed. "It's about appearances, Jackie. We can't help what people think when they see mixed families." I slid the phone onto the table between us, screen illuminated to show the active recording. "Say exactly what you mean, Mom." I want it on record. The color drained from her face as her eyes fixed on the phone. "You're recording me? Your own mother." "Yes." "Now explain what you meant about my children being different." She stood abruptly, gathering her purse. "I won't be ambushed like this. When you're ready to be reasonable, call me." Malcolm took the boys for ice cream while I met with the financial advisor. Sarah accompanied me to the bank to remove my name from my parents' accounts. My therapist validated the boundaries I was establishing, helping me navigate the guilt that still occasionally surfaced. When Claire appeared at my office again, my coworkers created a buffer. Taylor intercepted her at the front desk while Diane called security. James walked me to my car afterward. At school, the counselor met with Eli and Noah, providing a safe space for them to process their confusion. "Your boys are remarkably resilient," she told me during our follow-up. "They understand more than you might think." The invitation to dinner at Malcolm's parents' home came as a welcome respite. Joyce embraced Eli and Noah as they arrived, her affection natural and unreserved. Thomas led the boys to his workshop after dinner, patiently showing them how to sand wood for the birdhouse they were building together. I watched from the doorway as Thomas guided Noah's small hands over the sandpaper. "Smooth strokes, buddy. There you go." The contrast with my own family struck me deeply. No conditions. No subtle reminders of difference. Just love, expressed through time and attention. Joyce joined me, passing a cup of tea. "They're wonderful boys," she said simply. "Thomas is so patient with them," I observed. She smiled. "That's family for you. Real family." "What do you mean?" Thomas looked up from his workbench. "Family is behavior, not blood, Jackie. Never forget that." The truth of his words settled in my chest. Around these grandparents, my sons laughed without restraint, asked questions without fear, existed without apology. The final meeting with my parents was set for Sunday afternoon. I arrived 20 minutes early, using the spare key they didn't know I'd kept. The house was quiet as I stepped inside, but voices drifted from the kitchen. I paused in the entryway, listening. Jacqueline always gets so dramatic, Linda sighed. The boys are sweet, but they'll have a hard time in life. Better they learn early. At least she always comes back with money, Claire responded, her voice matter of fact. She's our safety net. My father's reply froze my blood. The mixed ones will always be a little different. It's just reality. My fingers found my phone automatically, opening the recording app as I stepped into view. 3 heads turned toward me, expression shifting from surprise to calculated welcome. I pressed record and held up the phone where they could all see it. Tell me more about the mixed ones, Dad. I'm listening. I stood in the doorway of my parents' living room, phone clutched in my palm. Gerald, Linda, and Claire froze like deer caught in headlights. I heard everything. And I recorded it, I repeated, my voice steadier than I felt. Gerald recovered first, his face morphing from shock to dismissal. You misunderstood what we were saying, Jackie. We were talking about how society treats children like yours, not how we feel. No misunderstanding necessary. I stepped forward, placing my leather portfolio on the coffee table. I heard exactly what you meant about my mixed children. Claire's eyes widened, her hand flying to her throat. That's not fair. You're twisting our words. I unzipped the portfolio, removing a stack of neatly printed spreadsheets. 9 years of financial transactions, laid bare in black and white. I slid them across the polished walnut surface, watching their eyes track the movement. $141,000. I tapped the bottom figure, circled in red. That's what I've given this family since I was 25, not including co-signing your mortgage. Gerald barely glanced at the papers. Family helps family. That's how it works. This isn't help. It's parasitism. The word hung between us, sharp and undeniable. Linda flinched as if I'd slapped her. I pulled a typed statement from the back of my portfolio. I've prepared this for clarity. I'm ending all financial support permanently. The automatic transfers have already been stopped. I've contacted the mortgage company about removing my name, though that will take longer. Gerald's face flushed dark red. You can't just walk away from family obligations. Watch me. Claire's face crumpled, tears spilling down her cheeks with practiced precision. We never meant it that way. You're twisting our words. I'd seen this performance before, the quivering lip, the catch in her voice. It worked on teachers, boyfriends, and me for decades. Not today. Linda clutched her chest, her voice dropping to a whisper. Your father's blood pressure can't take this stress. Is that what you want? To put him in the hospital. You should have thought about his health before you decided my children deserve to eat scraps on the kitchen floor. Gerald's voice hardened. I wonder what Malcolm's boss would think about these family concerns. Mental stability affects job performance, you know. The threat landed like a punch. Malcolm's position at the university was everything to him. Claire pounced on my hesitation. It might be worth a call to child services. Family instability raises red flags. Linda nodded solemnly. Pastor Williams was just asking about your family last Sunday. The church community notices when people stop attending together. Their coordinated attack nearly knocked me off balance. For a moment, I was 8 years old again, caught between Claire's accusations and my parents' united front of disapproval. Then, the front door opened. Malcolm's footsteps echoed in the hallway. He appeared beside me, tall and solid. Without a word, he placed his phone on the table and pressed play. Gerald's voice filled the room. The mixed ones will always be a little different. It's just reality. Claire gasped. You were both recording us? Threats won't change our decision, I said quietly. Malcolm spoke for the first time, his voice calm but firm. Our children won't be exposed to this again. I gathered the spreadsheets, tucking them back into my portfolio. No money, no contact, no exceptions. Gerald rose from his chair, pointing a finger at Malcolm. You're behind this. You've turned her against her own family. Malcolm didn't flinch. Jacqueline makes her own decisions, always has. The realization spread across my father's face slowly. His typical tactics, divide and manipulate, won't work this time. We were united. Linda reached for my hand. I stepped back. "We're done here," I said, zipping the portfolio closed with finality. 2 months later, Sarah called with news from her cousin who attended my parents' church. They missed their mortgage payment. The bank sent notices. I felt nothing but a dull ache where guilt used to live. The following week, Claire's husband Tom called Malcolm. They're repossessing Claire's car. She's been calling everyone for loans. Malcolm told me over dinner, watching my reaction carefully. "How do you feel about it?" he asked. "Like I can finally breathe." 3 weeks after that, we heard Gerald tried leveraging community sympathy at their church's potluck. His story backfired when he mentioned my ungrateful abandonment to Pastor Williams, who asked pointed questions about why I'd withdrawn support. A month later, Tom left Claire after discovering credit card debt hidden in his name. Their suburban facade crumbled quickly without my financial foundation. I watched it all from a distance that grew more comfortable each day. My therapist noticed first. "Your shoulders aren't up around your ears anymore," she said during our weekly session. That night, Malcolm slid into bed beside me, his hand finding mine in the darkness. "You smile more. You sleep through the night." "Do I? Haven't heard you grinding your teeth in weeks." Eli's questions about his grandparents grew less frequent. His nighttime anxiety attacks, which I'd never connected to family visits, subsided. Noah's artwork transformed gradually. The dark scribbles that concerned his teacher brightened. Stick figures held hands, smiling with oversized grins. At work, I found myself speaking up in meetings without rehearsing every word in my head. My boss noticed. "Your presentation to the executive team was exceptional. We're considering you for the senior management position." A position I'd never pursued because weekend family emergencies consumed the extra hours needed for career advancement. On a Tuesday evening in June, Malcolm spread brochures across our kitchen table after the boys were asleep. "What's this?" I asked. "Summer vacation options. Just the 4 of us." I paused, waiting for the familiar nod of anxiety. How will my parents react if we don't visit them? What excuse will placate Claire? The knot didn't form. Instead, a strange lightness filled my chest as I looked at pictures of beaches, mountains, and lakes. "The boys would love that waterfall hike," I said, pointing to a glossy photo. Malcolm's smile spread slowly. "For tickets, then. No extended family discount needed." I leaned against his shoulder, feeling the steady rhythm of his breathing. "Just us." "Just us," he echoed, his arms circling my waist. The weight I'd carried for decades continued to lighten, one obligation at a time. 5 months since I cut financial ties with my parents, and the calls kept coming. I slammed the phone down harder than intended, my hand trembling. This time, Linda's voice had that rehearsed quiver, the one she uses when aiming straight for my guilt. "We can't survive without help, Jackie. We've had to sell the house." The image of their sprawling suburban home, the one I co-signed for, flashed in my mind, now replaced by a 2-bedroom apartment across town, according to Mom. Part of me felt a twisted satisfaction. The larger part felt the familiar weight of responsibility pressing down. Malcolm slid a cup of tea beside my laptop without comment. His eyes asked the question he didn't voice. "They've moved to an apartment," I said, wrapping my fingers around the warm mug. "Mom says they're barely making ends meet." He nodded once, face neutral. We'd played this scene before. My phone buzzed with a text. "Claire, you've gotten what you wanted. Happy now?" Mom cried all night. They had to sell Dad's coin collection to make rent. So vindictive. The word burned. Vindictive. As if boundaries equal revenge. "There's a family gathering Sunday," I told Malcolm, scrolling through Claire's follow-up texts. "Aunt Patty is hosting. Apparently, I'm the main topic of conversation these days." "Are we going?" Malcolm asked, his tone carefully even. I shook my head. Not a chance. But Claire made sure I know they're taking up a collection at church for Mom and Dad's medical needs. The air quotes felt childish, but necessary. Dad's blood pressure had become their favorite leverage point. Malcolm sat beside me at the kitchen table, his presence solid. Your father called me yesterday. My head snapped up. What? Why didn't you say anything? Wanted to see how it played out. He stretched his long legs under the table. He implied he might contest the mortgage removal. Said something about legal options and family obligations. Ice formed in my stomach. Can he do that? No. But he thinks the threat will work. The doorbell rang, startling us both. Through the front window, I spotted Claire's silver SUV in our driveway. What now? I'll get it, Malcolm said, squeezing my shoulder as he passed. I heard their voices in the entryway. Claire's high and tight. Malcolm's low and controlled. Then her heels clicking on the hardwood as she followed him into the kitchen. We need to talk, she announced, not bothering with hello. She looked thinner, the designer purse on her arm less new than her usual. Financial reality had begun to bite. Then talk, I said, not offering her a seat. Her eyes narrowed. This has gone far enough, Jackie. Dad's doctor says his health is declining from stress. Mom can barely sleep. I'm sorry to hear that. No, you're not. Claire tossed her hair back. You're punishing them because you can't handle the truth. Which is? She leaned forward, voice dropping. That when those boys grow up, they'll face a world that sees them differently. We were preparing them. My fingers curled into fists under the table. By feeding them on the floor while your kids got the good china? That was one time. It wasn't. The certainty in my voice stopped her. And we both know it. Claire straightened, switching tactics. Mom says you're killing Dad with stress. Is that what you want? And when your boys are older, I'll make sure they know exactly why their grandfather died. The threat hung between us. I felt Malcolm stiffen beside me. But he stayed silent, letting me handle my sister. Anything else? I asked. Her eyes flicked between us, searching for cracks. Finding none, she grabbed her purse. The whole family knows what you're doing. Everyone at church. Even the neighbors. They all see you for what you are. After she left, the pressure to give in just this once, just a little money to help them through, nearly overwhelmed me. The familiar role of fixer beckoned like an old addiction. Malcolm's hand covered mine. They survived before you. They'll survive now. I nodded, though the words felt hollow against. 20 years of conditioning. That night, Eli crawled into bed between us during a thunderstorm, his small body curled against my side. After the thunder subsided, he remained awake, thoughtful in the way that always made him seem older than 8. Mom, he whispered. Is it because Dad's black? The question knocked the air from my lungs. In the dim glow of the nightlight, I saw Malcolm freeze on the other side of the bed, eyes open but unreadable. Why do you ask that, honey? I managed. Eli picked at a loose thread on the comforter. Grandpa told Connor that kids like me and Noah have to work twice as hard because of our dad. Truth hovered on my tongue, battling with protection. I looked across at Malcolm, whose pain was visible even in the shadows. Yes, honey, I finally said. Some people have small minds, even people who are supposed to love you. Malcolm's hand found mine across our son's body. Even Grandma and Grandpa? Eli's voice was small. Even them, I confirmed. But it's their problem, not yours, and it's why we don't visit anymore. Later, after Eli fell asleep, Malcolm and I sat at the kitchen table, speaking in low voices. He told me about the comments over the years. Subtle digs, jokes that weren't really jokes. The way my father would introduce him as Jacqueline's husband rather than by name. I didn't tell you everything, he admitted. You already felt caught in the middle. The revelation cemented something in me, a certainty that had been forming for months. We were doing the right thing. 6 months after the initial confrontation, Malcolm came home with unexpected news. Your father called. Wants to meet for coffee. His expression was cautious. Just me. The meeting happened at a neutral coffee shop downtown. I spent the hour pacing our kitchen, jumping when the door finally opened. Malcolm's face gave nothing away as he set his keys on the counter. Your father apologized. I blinked, certain I'd misheard. For what specifically? For how he treated me. The boys. He shook his head, looking dazed. Said he's been doing a lot of thinking since they downsized. Realized some things about himself he's not proud of. The next day, Linda called, her voice lacking the usual manipulation. We'd like to try family counseling. All of us. We were wrong, Jackie. We want to rebuild, not for money, for family. The familiar skepticism rose. The money isn't coming back, I said firmly. Love my children or stay away. Those are the only terms. I understand, she said. And for once, I think she might. In the months that followed, my journal of incidents became a healing tool in our family counseling sessions. The financial records showing the exploitation pattern remained in a folder on my desk, protection, not ammunition. The recordings documenting their racism stayed on my phone, unplayed but preserved. Gerald joined a local unconscious bias group, his participation shocking everyone, including himself. Linda cried during our third session. A raw, ugly crying I'd never seen from my always composed mother. I was raised with these beliefs, she admitted. I want to be better. Claire's progress came more slowly. She attended the sessions but spoke little, her defenses higher. Yet by the third month, even she began to acknowledge the harm done. We met for dinner at a moderately priced restaurant to mark 3 months of counseling. For the first time in my adult life, everyone paid their own bill. No subtle looks in my direction when the check arrived. No convenient trips to the restroom as the server approached. Watching my father explain the rules of baseball to Noah across the table, I realized the power dynamics had permanently altered. Not through revenge, as Claire once accused, but through truth, through boundaries that should have been established years ago. As we left, Linda touched my arm. Thank you for giving us another chance. I nodded, not quite ready to forgive completely, but acknowledging the journey. It's not for me, I told her, watching my sons walk ahead with their grandfather. It's for them. They deserve grandparents who see them. All of them. She followed my gaze, something new in her eyes, something that looked remarkably like understanding. Conclusion. I leaned back in my chair at Riverside Grill, a modest restaurant with warm lighting and the faint scent of rosemary in the air. 1 year has passed since that day in my parents' kitchen, the day everything changed. Now, my gaze travels across the table where Gerald listens with genuine interest as Eli describes his latest art project. So then, I mix the blue and yellow, Eli explains, his hands moving animatedly, and my teacher said my trees looked just like the real ones outside our window. Gerald nods, his eyes crinkling at the corners. That's talent, buddy. Maybe you could show me how to paint trees sometime. The question holds no hidden agenda, no conditional approval, just a grandfather who wants to share his grandson's passion. Beside them, Linda leans toward Noah, peppering him with questions about his baseball season. And you caught that fly ball? Right at the fence. Noah beams, spine straight with pride instead of tension. Coach says I have a good eye for tracking the ball. At the kids' table nearby, Claire's children and my boys trade jokes and French fries with easy camaraderie. No hierarchy, no subtle positioning, just cousins enjoying each other's company. The setting mirrors that first dinner almost exactly, family gathered around food, yet everything has changed. Noah shares his science project award without searching our faces for validation. Eli tells stories without that nervous glance I used to know so well, checking if anyone was really listening. Gerald turns to Malcolm. How's that new project coming along? The Sustainable Housing Initiative. Malcolm explains, and Gerald asks follow-up questions that show he's been paying attention all these months. Linda divides her attention equally between all 4 grandchildren, helping Connor with his napkin one moment and praising Noah's drawing the next. Claire catches my eye across the table. The entitlement that once shadowed her features has softened into something resembling gratitude. She's working now, her first full-time job in years, and the accomplishment sits well on her shoulders. When the check arrives, everyone reaches for their wallets without discussion. No more financial imbalance, no more unspoken obligations. I've got mine, Claire says, sliding her card into the folder. The waiter brings separate checks without being asked. We've been here often enough now that he knows our routine. Later, as we gather our things, Malcolm leans close. You stand taller now, he whispers, his breath warm against my ear. I squeeze his hand. I finally know my worth. Outside in the parking lot, Linda pulls me aside while the others help the children into their jackets. Losing your support was the best thing that happened to us, she says, her voice steady with hard-won wisdom. It forced us to see what mattered. I nod, knowing our monthly family therapy sessions continue to unearth surprising growth, especially from Gerald. His work on confronting his prejudice runs deeper than any of us expected. Linda and Malcolm's mother meet regularly for coffee now, sharing grandchildren's stories and recipes. Even Claire makes steady progress, though slower than the others. The drive home is peaceful. In the rearview mirror, Eli whispers something that makes Noah collapse into giggles in his booster seat. Malcolm's hand finds mine across the console, his touch familiar and grounding. The best investment I ever made, I say softly, watching my boys in the mirror, was teaching my boys that respect can't be bought and love doesn't come with conditions. Malcolm's fingers tighten around mine as I drive toward home, toward the life we've built on truth rather than compromise. In the back seat, my sons laugh freely, unburdened by expectations they never should have carried. And in that simple sound, I hear our victory.